is there was a suggestion from all group of people together to talk about different ideas and what we can do here in the clubhouse and how we might be able to make better use of it. I know one of the people that's involved in that is our social committee organizer, Susan Tabor, and I know a number of others have raised their hand and want to share their ideas. So reach out to each other, come up with additional ideas and be ready to share those with the board as soon as you can. Okay. A couple of the comments that were made, and I won't follow up on those. They weren't questions, but there were comments to the board, which is great. I'm going to let Mark, I'll let you handle 5 and 6, if you would there, sir.
Sure. So there was some discussion, some questions about the HOA's contract with John. Some comments about we've never seen anything like it. The termination clause requires 6 months. It seems very one-sided. Management fees are $4,000 a month. It's 50 grand a year. Before I go on to, I'm not sure you mentioned this, John. What's the total budget for each year? What's the total budget for the entire
budget?
Yeah. What's
operating?
What size business are we running here?
Our top line revenue is $1 million or $1 million a year company.
So we're $1 million. I just want everybody to understand we're $1 million a year company. Okay, this is not a joke. This is not fun. I understand we're all volunteers, but it's really good that we have a professional that's working with us. So I'll read the answer here, but I just want everybody to understand that. Yes, the board reviews all contracts and was very aware of the details of this contract. This contract has had several adjustments and changes requested by the board over the past 4 years. The specific clause about allocating a portion of the existing fee to infrastructure to properly allocate the expense of the current GL code was discussed in detail in the most recent contract. Also, all board members signed this particular agreement, even though these only require the signature of the president or the secretary. The contract with Best Teams Management, that's John Mudge, has received unanimous approval after each thorough review and discussion. And I just got to say this. I've been on this board under two different managers, and life's a lot easier even for the board right now. Number 6, I don't consider freedom of speech ambushing resented. The comment of the member and when I was questioning account 66050. Okay, the charge in July 2022 was for the required reserve analyst study, which is mandated by law every year. We used a Hessling group. They charge us roughly $2,500, and the finance committee reviews it before it ever comes to the board. The August change of $1,000 was a reallocation of a portion of the HOA's manager's fee for the time spent focused on the infrastructure project. Project allocation of expenses per discussion in detail, spent in detail with the board. The balance of the HOA manager's fee of $3,000 was allocated to the HOA management's contract as an operating expense. The September charge of $1,000 was an allocation of a portion of the HOA's manager's fee for the time spent focused on the infrastructure project. Proper allocation of expenses per discussion in detail with the board. The balance of the HOA's manager's fee of $3,000 was allocating expense. These charges are clearly clearly delineated on the budget versus actual report each month, and the HOA management contract fee is a separate line item to make it very easy to see what the total expenses are for that resource. I think I'm going to go on and read number 7 as well. I'm going to go ahead and do number 7 as well. Sure. Maybe I'm sorry, I'm just going to throw this out. This is public information pretty much, okay? The school district, right? Our budget is over $120 million a year. The superintendent probably gets, I know he gets over $100,000, possibly $200,000 a year. So I just want to put this in perspective, okay? Okay, thanks. I also, someone else mentioned that they, is this duplicate?
Same person.
Oh, I see. Same person.
Different angle.
Different question. Thank you.
Yeah.
I also took offense to the ambush statement by the owner in question number 2 above. I've been accused of that before, and I'm just presenting facts. There was a questioning of account number 66050, consultants reserves. This is an extra charge to the HOA by the HOA management when this should just be part of his job. It is part of his job and therefore is not an extra charge. This is a reallocation of a portion of the HOA manager's fee for the time spent focused on the infrastructure project. Proper allocation of expenses per discussion in detail with the board. The balance of the HOA manager's fee of $3,000 was allocated to the HOA management operating contract. So can I go off script? I'm going to go off script. John gets roughly, I don't know, $4,000 a month, something like that. John knew that he was going to have to take time to work with the infrastructure. He wanted to pull out that time and that amount. And so what he does now is he gets, I mean, this is really simplified. He gets $3,000 a month to do what he used to get $4,000 a month to do. He took the other $1,000 and is taking it to allocate it just for the infrastructure review. So took on a whole lot more work, no more money, and we're just clearly delineating which money goes where. Okay. Let's see. Mark, you didn't even actually read the contract. You were just going off what was told to you. Okay, so this doesn't have an answer. I'm going to answer this. At the school board, I have 30 pages of stuff to read 3 times a month. Okay, I read every word of that, and I can guarantee you I read every word of what I get for this. Okay, and so a lot of numbers floating around, but trust me, it's read. What was the way is doing is just weird. That's a statement. HOA management is paid hourly. It should be a salary position. The HOA management is not an hourly position and neither is a salary position. Best Team Management is a contractor, which charges a set fee per month for a level of service that is outlined in detail. These charges are then allocated to the areas of the operating budget versus reserve-related expenses as recommended and understood by the board in an effort of transparency. The levels of service are clearly outlined, and if additional service is required or requested, there is sometimes an additional charge. The year-to-date 2002, this contractor fee is running below the budgeted amount set by the Finance Committee and approved by the board. Letter E. We are being charged extra for things we shouldn't be charged for, extra meetings, in committee meetings, infrastructure consulting. There have not been any extra charges. There have not been any extra charges for extra meetings during the entire term of Best Teams Management. There have been no extra charges for infrastructure consulting as noted previously. F, the board approved that management pursue getting the VA condo approval for this for Chumash, so veterans can have a special loans to purchase and refinance their home. This is an example of extra fee the HOA manager is charging us. The proposal that was presented to the board at the March 2022 meeting was to obtain a VA condo approval, Department of Veterans Affairs condo approval. The details provided to the board for their consideration outlined the fees charged charged by the Veterans Administration Department of $9. It also reminded the board that it would look to this note about time was an effort at transparency, that there will be time spent by the HOA manager, and therefore the board should be aware that it was time they wanted management to spend. It was intended to be done within the allocated monthly hours. No extra management charges were accrued. G. It should be also noted that the park HOA manager compensation has gone down steadily in January 2018. These reductions were realized due to the HOA manager moving to 120 payroll to the HOA. Contractor also pays $2 million liability insurance policy on himself or the company, self-employment tax, Social Security, and Medicare, and pays for all certification training at state level. The contract compensation was again lower than
Just to summarize for everybody's benefit from my point of view, that's Mark sharing exactly what the board has done. That was a question. Board last month. I am a contractor, not a salaried employee. I do $50 a year, but it's $42.25 we have the additional every one of our contractors. I'll use a simple. Tom and I were talking about it earlier today. Executive janitorial that does our janitor service here. They're going to tell us they're a month to do that, but you got to pay that. You want them to do that, you got to pay this. You want them to come in an extra day after you have a nice party here and you want to pay them to clean it up, they're going to charge you for it. Those extras, as it was called, are outlined so that if there is a need and a request for Best Teams Management to go outside the normal structure of what my contract is said to do, there is compensation for it. I can tell you there are many a time I've done a meeting, I've done things outside the norm. Many of you know what they are. You see me out in the community. Those I don't charge for. Okay, so I am very confident. I'm not shying away from anything. I came into this position because I felt there was a community that had a need. I felt I was offering that service with my background. Anybody wants to know my background, I'd be happy to share it. But I brought my background to the table to help this community. And I believe we're in a much better place than we were 4 years ago. But anybody that wants to sit down with me calmly and properly, I'd be happy to have a discussion about it. Okay, so thank you for allowing me the opportunity.
At 8, John, I think you'd be better off. I think
Okay.
it's better for you to do the operating expenses.
This is, yeah, I don't see Sheila. Sheila asked a little help on understanding what line items what on the budget versus actual. We try to make the budget versus actual report. It's interesting, Tom and I, right, Tom, when we were getting you up to speed today, we looked at some reports from 2017, 2018, and what we're looking at today. Shocking. We try to make it as simple as possible to see. So to answer that direct question was how much has been spent on gas lines and electric line repair? And I shared in the meeting, I'll share here again. You have to look 2 places. If it's a repair, that's an operating expense. So that'll be in one of the 50,000 level numbers. And there is a title that tells you what it is. So for electrical, gas, and plumbing, that's 52,110, 52,170, and 52,390. I don't expect anybody to remember what they are. And if you ask me walking down the street, I wouldn't remember what they are. But I can pull out the report and look at it. Right there, it tells you year to date this year, we've spent $1,800 on electrical repairs, $665 on gas repairs, and $4,151 on plumbing and sewer maintenance repairs. Okay. Now you can't just say that's everything we spent on electrical. You have to look down at the reserve line, which 66,150, and Mark has already shared. There's been a lot of questions about that. That was brought up at the last meeting. 66,150 is labeled infrastructure electrical. And that is where our Ashley Vance consultant that's helping manage the bid process to get those detailed bids, their charge year to date is $73,432. There are some additional dollars in that. That's not all Ashley Vance, because we have had to buy new electric meters for 3 homes that lost power earlier this year, and we can't track their electrical without a new meter. That is a reserve related portion of the expense, so it goes under reserves. So the other thing along that, and it may be beneficial to anybody that would like to, I think we had a former finance committee member mention it at the last meeting too. Realize finance committee meetings are open. People should come to it if they want to know, learn more about it. In addition to that, what we're going to try to find a good time to do so we can get as many people to participate is we'll just have a finance committee, infrastructure committee, budget committee meeting, and just come in. Coffee, donuts, a glass of wine, I don't know, we'll figure it out, and just ask questions away. So you better understand all the work this team has done for the last 5 years now to make it as transparent and obvious as possible. Okay, so that's answers 8 and 9, quite frankly, Martin.
Yeah, okay. There was a question about the amount of accounts receivable. This is I could read all this. I think I'll get down to one part of it. If you figure, John's gonna help me with the math. If you figure there's 233 people paying $200 a month, right? John, that's about $50,000, right? That's the exact amount of accounts receivable that was brought up. Okay, so I don't know, I'm way off script here. I don't know, questioning how much we're all supposed to be paying as too high an amount. That's what that represents. There's also a question about the delinquencies. So, okay, so I'm going to go off script again. We all need to understand that people are going to get delinquent, right? They're going to get behind in their utilities. They might get behind in their monthly HOA fees. I don't know about any of you, but I am only a few months away, from being possibly delinquent, right? I only get so much money a month. And a lot of our neighbors I'm still working. A lot of our neighbors are not working, right? So they have a very fixed income and sometimes they get behind. So as one board member, I've probably got the softest heart up here. I'm really hesitant to start pushing hard, like we're going to kick you out on the street. I don't know about that, but anyway, the numbers that are here right now, the short summary of delinquencies, our unit delinquency rate, right? The number of members over 60 days is 2% of us, right?
2%.
That's 5 out of 234. The HOA industry average is between 4 and 7%, right? I mean, we're doing amazing. HOA lien delinquency rate is 0.08%. HOA industry standards are 2 to 3%. Our dollar delinquency rate is 3.5%. The HOA industry is 9 to 15%. So in a way, I got to thank John. I got to thank this board.
Kathy.
And Kathy, thank you, Kathy, and the finance committee, right? We're doing really good here. Anyway, and then are there any other loans that were taken out by some homeowners when the park was converted to homeowner owned that are now delinquent? And that's all in the past. Okay, they've all been paid in full at this point, right? So good little neighborhood we live in. All right, we're going to move on. I hope that that's going to help everybody with not shooting from the hip and getting the real numbers. Committee reports. Is there an architectural review committee? No, we're going through our meeting, John. And when you want to talk, Robert, we'll give you the microphone. If you interrupt now, I'll call recess. We'll all walk out of here and we'll come back. So wait till you have the microphone.
You said you're going to give us an opportunity to respond.
No, I never said that. Sorry. And I'm going to ask you to hold your questions till all public comment. Okay, good. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right, so we're going to move on to architectural report. Yeah, go for it. You had a fly.
Good afternoon again. I'm Tom, and I am the chairperson for the architectural committee. And we had our meeting on October 20th. of 2022. The meeting commenced at 9 a.m. We did roll call. John was absent. Rick Lewis was absent. Jane Wu was absent. And Ron Matthews was present, and myself. We had a discussion of some of the listed units that we just reviewed because there was only two of us. We went to, revisited unit number 66 is a fence. It's in process. Unit number 167 had a roof seal in process. I believe that could be completed by now and waiting sign off. Unit number 170 had a carport deck and steps in process. Okay, that HCE permit was applied. Unit number 178 has a carport landing and steps in process, and the permit has been applied for. Unit number 184 is a deck, needs to be reapplied, application and HCE update. But from what I understand, as of today, it has been reissued, or it is in process of being reissued. Unit number 186, no completion sign off, no communication of the fire protection applied to the shed out of regulation compliance. The committee recommends management send a letter to resident that we would like to see it completed within 30 days to be in compliance. Number 7, unit number 140, number 7, sorry. Unit number 146 is in process. It's a retaining wall. Unit number 121, the painting of the unit is complete and inspection was completed and will be signed off. Unit number 191, application received for a new install of an HVAC heater and air unit. The permit was submitted, it was denied by the state. The resident had to reapply with the correct forms and additional correct forms and more information about the lot itself and the dimensions that were going to be needed. And also at 199, a shed was installed. It was in process. I believe it's completed, waiting a sign off on that. And that's the report that I have from the Architecture Committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, so anybody going to read the Finance Committee report? Nadia?
Would you like me to read that, Nadia?
You want John to read it?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. And by the way, thank you for being the board representative. Appreciate it.
Okay. Finance Committee report. We had almost a full house. We had a couple new members. Merle Clift. I want to thank Merle for joining the finance team, and Sharon Whitney as well. Judy Hornaday and Jane Wu were also present, so we had a full house. Tom Nichols joined in as the new treasurer to help get himself up to speed. 4 main things. Finance Committee met to review, as they do each month, a draft of our September 30th financial reports, budget, balance sheet, all that. But the primary reason for the meeting, rolled up their sleeves and spent the entire meeting continuing its review of each line item of the budget versus actual report, and discussed any potential increases that we might anticipate and or decreases in both either income or operating expense. As many of you have heard us say it before, I'll say it again, the budget process is a 3-step process. You take a look at your actual year-to-date expenses. What is it really costing us to run this place? Scrub it, see if that's an anomaly. Is it something that's going to continue, or do you think it's going to go down? Then you take a look at the prior year's budget. How well did we do? And the third piece, probably the most important piece, is you wait until you get your reserve analyst, the third-party expert that tells us how much money do we need to be setting aside every month to make sure we can repair our assets when they break down, right? Roof on the clubhouse, infrastructure, those types of things. To this point, the Finance Committee, as of the meeting last week, has reviewed every line item, and we have a clear plan on where we're at on each of the operating expenses. The reserve study was not received until today. I just received the reserve study. I'm reviewing it. It'll be forwarded on to the Finance Committee, who has agreed to have an early meeting. The next one, they're meeting November 3rd. So it's just a week and a half away. We'll have an opportunity to review that in detail and incorporate that number in our final recommendation to the board for the budget. The recommendation for the budget will go before the board at the board meeting in November, and then all of that information has to be packaged up and distributed to the community no later than December 1st. You have to have it for review for 30 days. So that's what we're up against. Again, next meeting is November 3rd at 10:30 in the morning. There were a couple of notes that came in open last week. It was mentioned at the Finance Committee meeting. The Finance Committee meeting dates and times are on the website. It is posted along with our board meeting notices in our proper identified notice place, which is the bulletin board outside, as well as the bulletin board inside. And we will include it because the dates change, right? The smoke signal for November 1st had to be printed and given to the printer 2 weeks ago. So it's kind of hard to get a new Finance Committee meeting on November 3rd in there. So instead, it will be an insert in the smoke signal. So as many homeowners as possible are notified of the next Finance Committee, which will be November 3rd. Okay, that's the Finance Committee report.
And I want to describe the Finance Committee in a different way. A lot of organizations, the board sits up here, it makes its decision, it looks at the budget and it votes on it. Okay? We as homeowners here, we have an extra set of eyes. We have an extra, we're up to one, an extra set, 7 eyes looking over our budget, making the initial recommendation to this board. It's just more and more accountability for all of us. Okay, if I wasn't on the board, I'd be very happy that there were seven folks, probably, I think it's about seven folks reviewing this budget before it even gets to the board. All right, enough of me. Anything from the Infrastructure Committee?
Yeah. Good news on that front as well. We received from Ashley Vance 2 bids so far from contractors. They are, I won't give price out yet because we went back to them with an ask. Ashley Vance, we asked for a third because there is a wide disparity between the low bidder and the high bidder. So anytime you have something like that, either something's missing or something else is going on. There's a lot of extras hidden. We heard the word extras already mentioned earlier today. So we want to flush all that out. That's not our job. That's Ashley Vance, who's managing that project for us. So I chatted with them, Kathy and I, and Jess of the Infrastructure Committee. We talked to them, and they are looking for a third bidder. And I gave them instruction, if you can find a fourth or a fifth, and if you have to go outside the county to do it, go ahead and do it. The more, the better. It wouldn't be advised to have a contractor outside the county for some other reasons, but let's get as many eyes on this and as wide experience as possible on a project of this size. I can tell you that both bids came in below the high range of what we anticipate. So good news, we have 2 bids. It is below our high range. And we have yet to get some additional information to make sure they're accurate. Okay. We anticipate those. We also had some other questions and clarity. We expect that clarity by next week. And we asked that the additional bids, at least a total of 3, be received so that we can present it to the Infrastructure Committee and Finance Committee prior to next month's board meeting as well. So that is the push. My hope is 3 weeks or less, we'll have that additional information, and then we can start having roll up our sleeves, Infrastructure Committee, Finance Committee, and then We plan to start a series of town halls. Come on in, roll up your sleeves. Ashley Vance will be there. Both the contractors that have bid so far said they are willing to attend and participate. So we're getting as many of the quote unquote experts already geared up to participate in what is a very serious and big project for all of us, I know. So that's the latest from the infrastructure committee.
All right, thank you. Let me just add, it's really important, that just like it's really important for you folks to be here, right? It's really important if you go and attend these meetings and listen to Ashley Vance. If nothing else, you might find out what week your road's going to be closed, right? I'd like to know. I'm going to go to Tahoe. No. Leadership Development Committee. Do you ever?
We don't have.
Okay,
We need to reconstitute that and get that back up.
good. Okay, and Safety and Emergency Committee.
Okay, I have that one. The Safety and Emergency Preparedness Committee met on October the 4th for drill planning, October the 15th for safety drill training, and October the 18th for a committee meeting. The next meeting of the Safety and Emergency Preparedness Committee is currently scheduled for November the 15th, 2022. Members of the committee, myself as chair for the board, Carolyn Blackman, Bill Davis, Christine, I can never say it right, folks. Sorry, Christine, and Debbie Johnson, Jim Siebert, and John Mudge is the manager facility there. Update: this safety drill training class was attended by 16 in all. The class was divided into 2 teams and discussed how to work through a evacuation call. Questions and answer time followed. Electric chairs and oxygen was a big topic of concern, along with special needs and how and who to handle them. An earthquake was chaos. With the next drill with the date of April the 22nd, 2023. The meeting of October 18th, subjects covered topics on smoke signal articles, reminders of individual help for one's need in time of an emergency, like if you have pets, to have ready, medication lists and phone numbers for help. And as example, several topics were discussed. The bi-monthly report on the salt shop and the North Pool were presented. The salt shop is in need of cleanup. Some of the signs need replacing. It seems the users are forgetting to clean up after themselves. Trip hazards were noted at the North Pool area, and broken chairs need to be removed for safety. Was noted that there was broken chairs and other trash in the clothesline area that needed to be removed. There are two new umbrellas for the pool area tables. Bill was selected to look at the clubhouse. He's a new member. It is suggested the men's room be looked at for a handicap restroom. The stall is large enough to accommodate a wheelchair. And a request for a space for the clubhouse bulletin board for safety handout material. The next meeting is Tuesday, November the 15th at 3 o'clock to 5. Submitted by myself. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to take this, I'm going to insert this here because I think it was committee work. I'm off the agenda, so if you want to take me to jail, that's fine. I was able to attend the Louis Memorial. I think it was yesterday, right?
Yes.
Yesterday. And that was put together by a committee, so I think it's appropriate. So the part that I attended was awesome. I am now officially off my diet because somebody brought donut holes and I was standing in the back. So I had way too many of those, but it was phenomenal. I know we're all going to miss Louis. But whatever that committee was, if you're here and we're part of the organization, can you guys stand up? Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Thank
We
you.
got a lot of help.
Okay,
Yeah, Christine was the one that got the ball rolling and very calm.
okay. All right. End of the committee reports. We're moving on. And I really appreciate it. the- we've had a couple of interesting meetings, and we run our meetings pretty loose. We have some rules. We're going to try and have some rules that are written down and to help us get through what could be some rough spots. I think we all want to be civil. We all want to be nice. We all want to talk to each other the way we would if we ran into each other on the street. So I've got some rules that I'm going to propose. The boards have the ability to put in place what are called standing rules. So they're the rules for that existing board. If the next board doesn't want to follow them, that's fine. They don't become part of the CCNRs. So I've got a set of proposed. I'm going to read these really quickly. These are not going into effect today. We may try to operate this way, but it's just to get them on the table. So I'm going to read through these really quickly. And then I read a statement that I'll read again later that would become part of this, but it would be right before the open mic.
Mark, before you start,
Yeah.
trying to understand rights, it should be voted later on,
Yeah,
not today.
okay, so let me say it again. These are not going to go into effect today. These are laid out on the table. We may try to operate this way today when we get to open mic in particular. But right now, it's just an idea. So here's what we've got. The Chumash Village HOA Board adopts these guidelines of meeting operation. These rules may be amended by the board if there's a need. 1, the president of the board is solely responsible for the operation of the HOA member meetings unless a majority of the board votes the president out of that operation. So checks and balances. From time to time, the president may choose to adjourn the meeting. I really think this is just probably recess. I'm sorry, this is my typo. From time to time, the president may choose to recess the meeting for up to 5 minutes without a vote of the board. No meeting is fully adjourned without the consensus of a board majority. The president may use the gavel to highlight discussion that is not polite or civil. The president or designee may recognize people on the board in the audience who wish to address the board. Comments to the board are limited to, I wrote 3 minutes. There's, currently it's 5, so there's still going to be some room for discussion on this, but limited to 3 or 5 minutes and will be made only in the order in which folks are recognized. The president may choose to respond, may ask another board member to respond, or ask staff to respond. But the board's preferred method of response is to record the question, and when a complete and thorough answer is available, share that with the members. The president may take a question under advisement with answers. I duplicated that. I apologize. The president will recognize accurate and proper parliamentary rules and may refer questions or procedures to a person more knowledgeable about those rules. So most boards that I've sat on, especially volunteer boards, have somebody that the board is asked to be parliamentarian. So it's not, there's no discussion up here. There's no discussion out there. Somebody's got the book in front of them. Somebody's got a cheat sheet. And I'm looking for volunteers. And we will have somebody that can make a parliamentary decision so that this thing can run smooth. So those are the actually 7 things that I'm thinking about. And then we're going to have this addendum to it, which is the statement I read last time, and we'll read it again later. So I don't know if there's any discussion at this point. I'd like to just everybody to sit with this, and we'll bring it back as an action item maybe next time. Okay, great. Thank you. All right, moving on here. We've got some unfinished business. We're going to look at a review of the alternate ideas to replace, the masonry wall along the north pool, the famous pink wall, as I like to call it. John has given us a proposal. I'd like John to walk us through that, and then maybe the board wants to discuss it.
It's actually not a proposal. It's taking into account what the board requested 2 meetings ago when it was brought up. This is for the retaining wall that's starting to give way around the parking area, the street that borders, call it our secondary dog park, call it a dirt patch, overgrown, whatever you want to call it. But that area up there south of the North Pool and the driveway there. So originally they looked at a proposal. Masons were hard to find, so we only had one proposal at the time. But we had a proposal from that person to replace with like, basically tear out where it's fallen down, put a new retaining wall, cinder block retaining wall in place, and it was going to cost us X. The board asked, what other options do we have? Also, it should have been noted, and I think it was at that meeting, that proposal did not include permits, which we do know we will need. We have another homeowner that's kind of struggling with that on a retaining wall here in the community, and it isn't easy to go through that process. So that said, what other options can we look at, John? One option was to grade it, all right? Instead of replacing it with a cinder block wall, what if we were to slope it? How much of that surface do you lose? Usable surface do you lose? What would it look like? What are the different ways we could slope it? Do we go, actually Mark and I were over at his place checking on something, and you have some of those blocks that actually you can build plants in. They kind of interlock. You can put soil, you can put plants. So it becomes a pseudo retaining wall, but at a much longer slope, if you will. So this isn't the proposal. This isn't a plan. This is an alternative which one contractor came up with. If you just want to grade it, and this is a contractor that is licensed to do it, has the equipment to do it and grade it properly. Our TSG, our landscaper, does not have equipment and isn't licensed to do this level of grading. But you could do grading similar to what you guys see in front of you. The board has pictures of the cinder block wall falling apart right now. They have a picture of what that space up there looks like on the top. And then they have a rendering of what it could look like if you do a grading and a sloping. On this, the board sees mulch that could be those blocks as you're talking about instead. How does that impact the bid? You see, my recommendation is if you want to go in a direction like this, before we go out to bid to 3 to 5 different people, is this the direction you want to go? And what types of things do you want to look at? Anybody that hasn't done this before, DG is very similar to what we are using on the pathway in front of the clubhouse over here. It's, basically crushed granite and rock using a pathway. It's got some grass, it's got some vegetation, and they're recommending leaving 3 or 4 of the trees in place as is. So that's an idea for you guys to approach for you guys to approve further review. And that's what it says in big bold letters at the bottom. So it's not a proposal. It's an alternate approach as an example. Give us some guidance. Do we go left? Do we go right? And do we get you solid numbers? Okay.
Okay, so is anybody on the board? We're not down in action. Okay, let's go to new business, review approval of the quarterly reserve allocations. You heard me mention this.
Excuse me.
Yes, sir. You do have a discussion.
May I comment on that?
You may comment about it. Go for it.
Okay.
Here, this one.
No, that's all right. You guys.
No. Evidently not.
Pardon me, Mark, I'm sorry.
No, good.
I tried to squeeze in there.
You know what? I should have turned to the board and asked for comment, so my
I
bad.
really appreciate everything that John did here and Kathy to get involved with this North Pool retaining wall and offering different approaches. I'm thankful for that. There's still a few things, outlying issues that I can see with some of this, but I would like to at least present an idea that a couple members of our architectural committee be involved in this a little bit, because there are some structural things actually going on there within the guidelines of the architectural rules. And also it's a common area type thing. For a lot of people who don't know, years ago, it was the Classa playground. So this is something that I would like to have at least a couple members of the architectural committee get involved in reviewing this. And personally, on my own accord, with another individual on the art I have on my own time, did some research on this area up here before the board moves forward to vote on it or accept bids, that there are going to be electrical line issues through that street from the opposite side. That area has major lines running through it. But to not to digress and get a little involved in this, I would like to just see a couple of more members from the architectural committee view their opinions and stuff through that. Thank you.
Anybody else on the board? Any thoughts? Okay, thank you. John, thanks very much for this step in a different direction. Tom, thank you very much.
Sorry.
Yeah, Dwayne, thank you.
Yeah, I went up there and took a look at it, and I don't oppose what Tom suggested, that having the architectural committee members give some input on that. Since the time I was a little kid, I used to help my dad build all kinds of brick and concrete walls. I studied architecture for several years. I almost became an architect, but I don't think we should overcomplicate this. It's a relatively low retaining wall where really only the one corner has crumbled, and beyond there's some cracks. And this is just food for thought. So if anybody wants to go take a look at this, to observe it this way, there's a tree in the corner where the crumbling of the wall is. So what I see is whether a new wall is built or it's removed entirely and there's slope grading done, there's going to be a substantial amount of destruction and removal of the existing wall, chain link fence that is embedded into that wall, which effectively holds up the entire edge, which all have to be removed, leaving what is now a grassy area and a tree or two. So it's going to be very costly, and I think we also need to look at whether there should be, I don't like to use the term piecemeal, but somewhat of a piecemeal repair done to the one corner, because it's not a very tall wall. So but in any event, I think we should continue it for further review and to look at the various possibilities and weigh the costs versus the benefits. And finally, I would love to know if anybody actually uses that grassy area as it counts.
Yes,
That's all.
Since we had kind of an open thing going here, that is just one idea. I'd like to know what other uses that area could have before we put a lot of effort into doing all this and money that might change it. Like Dwayne said, there's one tree in the corner that probably could have possibly caused this damage. We need to remove trees, but we can take that out and replace a tree, not on a wall. Roots are very dangerous when it comes to structures. But I'd like to see some other ideas for the landscape. And like you said, there's a lot of old bushes that should be removed and new things come in. That's a good example, but I think we should have more than one example for that area. That's it.
thanks. I think that was really important to hear from the other board members. I apologize that I didn't go to you sooner. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to try to summarize for John what I heard. And then I think John is going to have a little bit more work to do. So one thing I heard is possibility of some other ideas for the location, other uses for this space, fix the concrete as it is. Dwayne?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, to try to fix the wall as it is.
I had several suggestions.
Okay,
That's
thanks.
one option.
And then Tom suggested for some architectural review committee people to be on there. So I thought I'd just summarize that. That's what I heard. Okay, moving on. Let's see. So under new business, review and approve the quarterly reserve allocations. This approach to taking and setting aside reserve allocations is what's just made our reserve allocations just blossom. I have to thank John, this was his idea, and it's just been amazing. So what I'd like to do is steal some of John's thunder, probably. I just want to read this summary number one on this. As recommended at the February 2019 board meeting and noted on all subsequent treasury reports since that time, management is recommending that the board review the treasurer's report, both the 61100 reserve income line and the net operating income line on the profit and loss statements, compare that to the 2022 final budget to reserve allocation and determine how much should be moved to the reserve interfund account. And John, I'll take it from there.
Okay. I know we sound like a broken record every quarter, but that's a good thing,
Yeah.
right? The good thing is that we have the income line noted 61100, which is the reserve income line, shows that we have $224,857.62 that has been allocated to reserves so far this year. Okay. Net operating income noted on the profit and loss draft report. As of 9/30, we have an additional profit above what we budgeted of $23,245.98. The budget for 2022 says that for the entire calendar year, we are budgeting setting aside $311,410 to reserves. So those are the things that we said at the beginning of the year, and it kind of tells you where we're at so far. The last piece says the amount to be allocated for Q3, it should say, typo on my part. Q3 would be $77,852.50 to be allocated, additional money to be allocated to reserves. The reason we share for the board and sharing for everybody here today is how much has been set aside so far. We show it to you right there. We've already set aside $225,000 roughly. We told the community that we were going to set aside, budgeted for $311,000 to be set aside to reserves. We are still profitable even above that to the tune of $23,245, even with all the overages and utility costs and everything else. So budget-wise, we're doing well. So the recommendation to the board then is we're doing well. We said we're going to transfer $77,852.50 every quarter to reserves. We're asking the board to go ahead and approve that transfer of money to reserves. So that's recommendation number one. Want me to do them separate?
Anybody want to vote on them separately, or are we okay voting on them together?
We don't vote them again.
Sorry. I appreciate that. Is there any discussion on number one?
No.
Okay,
We're on, but.
thanks, John.
Not one.
Okay. The second piece, as recommended by the CPA, came out of the audit in 2018, and it has been our practice even before that audit was completed. You should, as standard practice, also look at how much money you've spent on reserve-related expenses so far, right? If we've spent $100,000, where does that money come from? How do we pay that bill? It comes out of our operating expense. So reserves has to pay that back, right? So where are we at so far, John, in Q3? We've had a total to year, we spent $85,855.38 in reserve-related expenses for the whole year, the first 9 months of the year. We've already transferred $21,897 back from reserves into operating. So this quarter, third quarter, we had some big expenses. It was all the reserve-related consulting work that Ashley Vance has been doing to help us get these bids. So the recommendation to the board for this quarter is that we transfer $63,958 back from reserves into operating. I'm with you guys, right? Wouldn't it be simple, John, to say what the difference between those two numbers are and just move that over? No, it needs to stand out in black and white, right? Our CPA says, you said you were going to transfer 70, $7,852.50. I'm asking the board to let us transfer $77,852.50 into reserves. And then we're following the analyst's advice. You spent $63,958, transfer $63,958 back the other way. We've been doing that for the last 3 years, every quarter. Okay? That's the recommendation.
Okay, so any questions on that part of the recommendation? All right, so we'll look at that in the proper location and take a vote on that. We're now on open forum, so I'm going to hand the microphone to John in just a second, but I'm going to read this every single time. One of the hallmarks of a democracy is that its citizens' willingness to express, defend, and perhaps re-examine their own opinions while being respectful of the views of others to ensure civil conversation. Number one, show respect for the views expressed by others, even if you strongly disagree. Be brief in your comments so that all who wish to speak have a chance to express their views. Direct your comments to the board as a whole rather than to any one individual or any one individual in the audience. Don't let disagreements or conflicting views become personal. Name calling and shouting are not acceptable ways of conversing with others. Let others express their views without interruption. Everyone will get a chance to speak or respond to someone else's comments. I'm going to strike that one. I don't know how that one got in there. Sorry, this is not what I read last time. This is a summary of it. I take back what I just said. Let others express their views without interruption. Remember that a frank exchange of views can be helpful. Yeah, we're not putting that in. Sorry, this is not what I read. I'll look it up next time. Tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Moderate your tone so that you don't sound aggressive. Be conscious and mindful of your facial expressions. Be attentive and considerate of your opponent's point of view. Process what is being said, and please don't repeat yourself. Okay, John, here we go. I will recognize. So here, and there. Here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Carolyn Blackman, number 73. I commend the board for putting forth a response to the open forum questions and comments. It's the first time I've heard that, and I hope you continue because a lot of times I have felt like, why do I go to board meetings and say things because it feels like it falls on deaf ears. For instance, I have been saying to the board, please don't put a retaining wall in there. Please talk to me. I have a vision of additional parking places that can bring us income, as well as converting that space to something that's more open that we can use for barbecues, etc. So I plead with you, please, it's just one person talk to me about the vision that I have about that space, and I think that we do not need that retaining wall at all. I forgot what I was going to say. I have a bunch of questions here about the budget. Thank you, Tom, for preparing it so well. It seems like there was a bunch of money spent on fire prevention. I would like to know what that's about. It seems like there's a website purchase once a month for $1,000. I'd like to know what that's about. And then there's an accounting line item of $2,400. And then it says QuickBooks. I don't think that we're spending $2,400 in QuickBooks. I think we're actually paying an accountant, but I'd like to get that clarified in my own way.
Thank you.
Who was next, Mark?
I just remembered what I was asking. I do want the board also to pay attention to the request to make the men's bathroom a single purpose, at a time. It only would require fixing the locks that are already there and one sign. It wouldn't be a huge expense.
Who was next?
Vicky was next, so we'll come back to Vicky. So all the way, Tom in the back. Tom, please.
Just a short one. My name's Tom. I'm at 179 and that big behind the, well, just south of the North Pole is used quite frequently for dogs, almost all day long. The dogs love that place. And actually, they love that little patch of grass out there. Because every dog I've walked out there to that area, they can't wait to get there and snoop around. It's just the way it is. It's like, and it's a good asset to the park, to have that area there at the park. Because sometimes people need that type of situation just to, as they go around walking. Because walking is one of the favorite things I see people doing around here, and walking the dog. It's very much used, and some people I see out there just, maybe they are just walking around without a dog also. But I think it's an important asset to this property as is, or something similar, facsimile.
Vicki Anderson, number 64. The question want to ask, I have concerns, when they can do the retaining wall in too, because I think, I don't know, big architects things, it seemed like they could, place another partial reinforcement on the corner of the concrete there. Little extra fence of some kind, and I have no concern about trees, because I'm very much of a tree person. And when they say, oh, we can always replace a tree, I haven't seen any in the park being replaced of trees that were taken out. Palm tree there, palm tree at 166. I haven't seen anybody, and a tree right across the street from me, it had to be replaced because it died. I suggested it to it and it died. No one even suggested, I didn't say even place it right there, somewhere in a little park or somewhere in the park to have more trees. So that's it. Thank you. Suggestions.
Thanks. Just a second, run low on battery. Didn't want it to go dead on somebody right in the middle of something.
I hope that doesn't say something about how much we all talk, but
Who's next?
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Martha, Marty Hall, space 187. Speaking with also my sister, Christine Escartine. Just want to recap real quick. We did have a celebration of life that we hosted for our dear Louis Silva, Mayor Shemesh, yesterday. It came about very quickly because his passing caught us all off guard and was very sudden. And people did approach. There was talk about having something for him. So Christine had said right away, let's have a celebration of life, a life well lived within the park here. So myself and Mary Pollock, we kind of just got our heads together and got the ball rolling, and we had a nice turnout yesterday. A lot of support here in setting things up and breaking things down. And they're also along the way in talking with residents here in the park about, is there something that we can continue as far as showing Louis' present going forward? How can we recognize that? And the talk of a bench camp coming up. And so that seems to be what everyone's drawing attention to. So we just wanted to let everyone know here going forward. Again, it just the ball just keeps rolling here, that it was announced in looking and taking donations for a bench. Yesterday at the gathering, people already were coming forward with cash. So we've gathered that up, we counted it up, we had 3 people sign for the amount that we gathered. And that, like I said, we're just moving forward with this, the opening up an account at Mechanics Bank the Louis Silva Memorial Fund so that people can make a deposit if they want to donate, because there were people that were coming forward that didn't have their checkbook or cash. They want to donate. So that's what, again, we'll take it upon ourselves, right? That we volunteer each other all the time. So we're just gonna move that forward and just want to let everyone know that that will be in the works. We'll let everyone know through the board, through the smoke, however that we can, that has happened, account number, how you can make those donations going forward. So we just want to say that that is in the works for everybody. Okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad to be back once again.
I too just want to say, thank you to, a number of you that are here tonight, came out for Louis yesterday. We figured we had about 40 people. We had so much fun and hearing the stories. Louis' brother, Bill, was here with his wife. So we got to hear more from him, additional things about Louis, and I just want the fun to come back in the park. I've missed it. I've been away a lot caring for another sister, and we just want to have fun.
It felt good to be together again.
Yeah,
Neighbors.
yeah, thank
Yep.
you.
So Bill first, please.
Bill?
Yes.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you. I want to thank Dwayne and Tom for their concern about the little park area we have up by the North Pool. Several years ago, we were doing some work on the trees up there. And I talked to the man that was in charge of the crew. And he said, be careful with this tree here. He said, this is a very rare tree. He said, it's and I hope I'm getting it right. It's a Catalina Island flowering ironbark. And it's pretty beautiful because that whole giant tree just blossoms with white blossoms. And it's sort of special. And I know that the city has a lot of interest in specimen trees, and I would like to see you guys taking care of everything. Thank you.
In addition, in the interest of accessibility, in addition to the idea of having
Sorry.
a
Sorry. We've talked before. Can you just tell everybody your name and your unit?
Aaron,
Thanks, Aaron.
I appreciate your concerns about supporting our residents who need some help with participating. One of our residents who has made huge contributions in the past, including on the board of directors and participating and contributing to lots and lots of events, now has difficulty with falls. I think maybe she's had many strokes because she just falls. So at this point, it's very difficult for her to participate. And her suggestion was also to have bars in the bathrooms, and also to have in each bathroom one toilet seat that has the raised thing on it, because some people cannot descend that low and then get up that high during the toilet. And in general, just really support inclusion rather than exclusion and accessibility. Okay, that's it.
Thank you. So we're gonna go to Robert, please. No. I'll come back to you. Robert, please.
Thank you. Robert Akalian, Series 110, and apologies for like interrupting. I thought that you said that we're gonna have a little back and forth after that, so
That's okay.
and then also apologies for going over last meeting too. So, when I, listening to this crowd here, I can see that the majority of people are, you know, seem to be pretty happy with the way things are going. And, I'm at a point where to like battle something, or, you know, I'm convinced I'm correct, and I'm open to being corrected. I just, there's a point where I'm not gonna waste my energy doing something when there's, you know, it's a futile thing to do. The case like when I was on the board of directors during the past, because I was consistently outvoted. And it was just pointless being on the board at that time. So for me, I don't understand why some things don't bother some of you here. For instance, we talked about the reserve consultant, and that's something that I brought up this 2 meetings ago, and then in the last meeting. And as far as I'm concerned, it is indeed it's extra pay for John. And you know, John's absolutely correct, and Mark's absolutely correct that the $50,000 a year is probably about average for a community association manager. However, that's based on 40-hour work week. And you can go to the Bureau of Labor and Statistics to confirm that, and also some other sources. So I just think it's, you know, by relabeling yourself and calling yourself a reserve consultant, it's, as far as I'm concerned, if I hadn't brought it up, I don't think anyone would know about it. And then, you know, it's some other things that bother me that doesn't seem to bother some of the other homeowners. And that is, you know, like not getting bids or getting proper bids. We didn't get a bid for this infrastructure bidding process, which was been done by Ashley Vance, and most definitely we should have gotten at least 3 bids, but it didn't happen. And then, you know, this is the sore thing with me. I look out at our streets and I think, wow, how many people are happy with the way the roads look out there? And did you guys know that we had 4 bids for that, and that the low bid was 35,000 and the high bid was 91,000? And the board went with the $91,000 bid, and it was based on a 5-year warranty, but it turns out there wasn't any warranty. And the thing is, I have the proposal, and it was just one lump sum. It said $91,200. There was no breakdown or anything as far as how it was itemized. And I have a copy of the TOS bid, 37,000, and they itemize it. They say what the striping is, what the materials are, and it's broken down in a good way. And to me, we lost $50,000 because we didn't go with one of the lower bids. And that should bother you as far as I'm concerned, but apparently it doesn't. And if it doesn't bother anybody, then I'm not going to let it bother me. And I'm just going to say, hey, you know, we can keep going down this thing, but as far as I'm concerned, we